This is Cyber Smokehouse, and I'm Ernie.
And I'm Graeme.
Join us as we grill the minds, dig into the experience, and serve up the stories of leaders in cybersecurity.
Cyber Smokehouse is sponsored by TBD Cyber, a cybersecurity strategy consulting firm. Today's guest is someone we're very happy to have on the podcast. He's a cybersecurity leader, an enterprise CISO, and a risk and compliance strategist. He leads enterprise security programs across government, financial services, retail, and global organizations, advising executives and boards on risk and resilience. He has built and scaled multiple security functions, strengthened compliance across multiple frameworks, including PCI, SOC 2, HIPAA, and ISO, and as well as large-scale cloud environments. He's a frequent industry speaker and advisor. He is currently the CISO for the City and County of Denver. Merlin Namuth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, hey, Merlin, we're glad you're here. Let's light the fire and crank up the heat in the smokehouse. So we typically don't like to beat around the bush. We like to dive right into it. So as you look out of the cybersecurity industry, what do you think is the most challenging for organizations today?
Of course, everyone's going to say AI, but I'd have to be different. AI is definitely a challenge. But I would say, because I've been doing this for many, many years, doing cybersecurity, and I still see organizations just struggle with what I call the foundational elements of security. So, hardware asset management, software asset management, vulnerability management. I just, see organizations just just continue to struggle. But if you get those things right, it actually does really strengthen your program and reduce your risk. And so just a quick story on why I chose to call it foundational elements. So several years ago, I was having lunch with a local peer of mine, and we were talking about man, why can't we as a security industry, get these, basic things right? And then in that lunch, we were like, wait, we shouldn't be calling these basic because, basic kind of sends the wrong message that they're easy to do, and they're actually really difficult to do. I've led programs in small, medium, and large organizations, and it doesn't matter the size. Still tracking all your hardware assets is actually very difficult, no matter the size of organization. And so from then on, I just started referring to them as foundational because they are a foundation to your security program. If you don't have those things in place, it doesn't matter if you have zero trust and other things. If you're not patching your vulnerabilities, the attacker could still get in.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, you had mentioned that earlier, just that it's to move away from the idea of basics to foundational. And you mentioned that earlier to me. And I think that's a good point is it's not trivial anymore. Like if it was, everybody would be doing it. And so that's a good shift in mindset. I totally agree with you. So where do you think the complexity comes from? I mean, just walk through some of those challenges that make it so difficult. And I do think it's difficult. Walk us through some examples.
Yeah. So I guess with the asset management, some time ago, I was in this CISO event, breakfast reading event. And someone in a relatively large organization said they had I want to say 3 or 5 different asset management systems. And the day didn't all coincide with any of them. And he's like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out, where my North Star is and what's actually truth here. So I think it's just, I don't know, it might be some tooling. I think it's processes. I've worked in some very regulated organizations, and they had those processes down very well, but they also had teams of people who did nothing but asset management. And so I think, it's for most, a lot of organizations, asset management is yet another task that IT has to do. And, on top of all the other tasks that they have to do. So I think that, when you can't have people 100% focus on it, then I think that's kind of where it breaks down and, processes, break down, or there is no process. In terms of vulnerability management, that one's always an interesting one because I think every place I've worked, there's always legacy systems. And so what do you do about those legacy systems? We try to bolster our security detection and prevention around those systems, but you can only do so much. And so that's always a challenge when you have those in legacy applications that you just can't patch. And I was like, we've been using this legacy application for 20 years. The vendor isn't making any updates. So we're kind of stuck with it. And I'm definitely facing, some of those challenges here at the city and county with some of those legacy applications.
And it gets even more complex when you start talking about like healthcare systems where you've got these long-lived assets like MRI machines and things like that, or in operational technology, where just patching and vulnerability management just adds another complexity, right?
Oh, absolutely. One example we have here at City, it's not necessarily a security problem for me, but OT we have so much OT. Like when I started this job, I asked my team, like, so what do we have for OT? And they just started rattling off stuff. The wiring systems for the golf courses, there's devices that will tell the firefighters if the garage doors are up and down, up or down, at the firehouse. And those aren't like big, vendors that create those systems. Those are smaller vendors. And so, they don't have like, big teams of people to like, pen test their products before they ship out to their customers.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, so but you're right. I think the other thing about asset management, vulnerability management from a security perspective is a lot of the time we have to rely on others outside of our direct control, right? I mean, we rely on those that are managing the network and the systems to continue to update the CMDB, keep it accurate, et cetera. If it's vulnerable, if it's patching, we can do the scan, we can identify the problem, but we can't necessarily direct the solution to completion, right? And so, I think that makes the job in security be we have to rely on so many others to complete all the tasks and reduce the risk.
Absolutely. A large part of my job as CISO is a position of influence. I'm trying to get other teams to do something to build a, like you said, patch system, reduce the risk somehow. We talk a lot in security about how, security is usually understaffed, under budget. IT is the same way. And I think security leaders need to keep that in mind. It's like IT is not overstaffed and they're not over budgeted either. And so I think if people would approach that in that manner, be like, oh, they're struggling as well, that then you can, reach some compromises and come up with some timelines where you're not crushing the IT team to, crack something. And there's times where I accept some level of risk that I would rather not, but I have to keep in mind, it's like, how's this going to impact the overall organization? The applications that, the city relies on, how could this, impact the police department, or the fire department, sheriff's department, wastewater. I mean, all these departments. And so I have to weigh that because, keeping those systems up and running is more important than security. I mean, we want to do it in a secure manner, but we need to make sure that we're not adversely impacting, some application that could actually jeopardize or even just impact safety of a police officer that's pulling over a car. Like if their system in their car is not working, for them to look up a suspect or a license plate. Now, obviously they can call that in and have that done, but that is a delay, and that could impact that officer safety if that application is not available.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you were to think about, I don't know, let's go back to foundational controls. Like if you were to prioritize them, and you had to do one, what do you think would be the best dollar spent if you could do one thing that would give you the best risk reduction?
Other than unplugging from the internet,
hey, you don't have to spend for that. That actually save you money.
I would say patching and like, the SANS Institute, they give a keynote every year at the RSA conference. And they have said for, years in a row that if you have a very small security program, maybe it's just you, maybe it's just one person, and you have very limited budget. If you can't do anything else, at least work on your patching and vulnerability management.
Would you put multi-factor in as a foundational control? Because I feel like people are getting more used to that. Like back in the day when you had A tokens and things like that, but
yeah, I would say so at this point. I mean, yeah, because MFA has been around for a long time now. And yeah, I would consider that a foundational element.
Okay. And then One other question. So, and Graham, I'd be curious to get your take because you come from a CIO background. So, I'm not a practitioner anymore, really, and I've been in consulting. Like, why don't people just do auto patching? Like, why don't we just turn it on or do some at least risk scoring on the systems, right? Like, I get critical servers, you couldn't do this, but like half the assets, why don't you just let them patch? Just auto configure, do the patches.
Well, I mean, it's really, I mean, it can impact your availability. I've said for years, it's like you could have 5 identical laptops and you push out the same patches to them and one of them's going to fail. And you don't know why. I mean, they're identical, so they shouldn't fail, but you're always going to have something that's going to fail. And I think that this is an area where AI might be able to really play a good role is in patching, because our team spends so much time doing it. And let's face it, it's not exciting work. Vulnerability management is not exciting work. And I tell teams that, like, I'm sorry I'm asking you to do this, but it's really, really important to our risk posture to be able to address these vulnerabilities, as well as, for compliance, all the different compliance standards that we have to abide by require it. But yet I think that, somehow there's got to be a way to be able to make this more streamlined, like you're saying. And AI might play a role in that.
Yeah. I think in my experience, the biggest challenge with patch is always it's that balance between business operations, right, and downtime, right? Because people, it's either they don't want to bring down a system because it's critical to their ongoing business operations, business process, and they don't want any disruption, or they're concerned about what impact it's going to have on the system, right? Because there's a lot of custom code or a lot of dependencies in the tech stack, and if we screw something up, we could cause a lot of problems. So they typically are the two biggest obstacles, I think, that IT people will come back to you and say, we can't do it now because the business needs the system up 24/7, and we can't find an available window to bring it, to do the patch, or we've got so much stuff in here, we're just really nervous about this thing falling over if we apply this patch.
So, Merlin, you had talked about, I think, in even selling these objectives, basically selling the program up, down to the business, and just communicating the objectives. Could you talk a little bit more about that and just communicating, what you're trying to do with the program and just really selling security across the organization? I mean, how do you do that and how do you achieve it and make sure everybody's, swimming in the same direction as you and get them on board with what you're trying to do?
Yeah, there's definitely, some strategy around that. And it kind of depends on the organization, because I've used different tactics to be able to achieve that. So in some organizations, I've aligned very closely with legal because, when you think about it, legal has the same objective that cybersecurity program does, and that's to keep the organization safe. Now, of course, the attorneys do that in a different manner, but we have the same overall objective. And so I have found that aligning with internal legal has been really strong allies for me to do that. It's a lot of salesmanship. I have read books on persuasion, salesmanship, and things like that to be an effective CISO, because when I go talk to my leader or one of my peer leaders about something, I want to make sure I'm giving them the full picture, as well as I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture of hey, if we do this, it's not going to be a risk to the organization. I'll be yeah, there's some risk to the organization. Here's what I see that risk is, but I believe that the security benefit outweighs the operational risk. And so it's really just helping people understand what objectives are, as well as what are their objectives, and because they have objectives that they're trying to maintain as well, because they have they get a paycheck and they're paid to do something for the organization. And so I think it's really important to understand what their objectives are, and then also what their fears are when I want to do a security initiative, because let's face it, security is always an afterthought. When someone starts a company, they don't, on day one, they don't establish a security program. security programs comes later, and so everything we do in security, or a lot of things, I don't think I'd say everything, but most things that we do in security is disruptive to an organization because it's always an afterthought. And so I think like having that understanding, having some empathy for the other teams and what they're dealing with. So, we're asking them to do something that they may not be the most comfortable with, and it's my job to help them feel comfortable and feel supported, and also know that I have their back. That if it goes wrong, I am the throat to choke guy in that situation because this is something that I wanted to have.
And I'm curious in pushing the objectives forward, how do you think frameworks fall in? Like, do you still think maturity scores and these frameworks are still useful, or do we need to get more to risk quantification? Is that still valuable, having, the 1 to 5 scoring, or do you still need the compliance or legal stick to help move the needle forward?
I think it's a combination of all. Using quantitative measures, I think are best. Now, of course, we can't quantify everything. We have to use some qualitative measures as well. But I think that's good. And then I also like when I present quarterly to, like in my current job, reporting to the mayor's office. I, part of my deck, I talk about other breaches that. Yes, we're spending a lot of money on cybersecurity, and here's why. Because here's what's happening in the world around us with the different breaches and the impacts that those have. So I just try to be real. I don't try to play used car sales, or shell game with people, because people will eventually figure that out and see through that. So I just try to, like I said, just have understand their perspectives and come with data. I think data is good. So I think risk scores are still valuable. Just make sure that you're measuring the right thing, and that you can, it's repeatable, as well as I think another thing is when and I was just having this conversation this week actually, is that it seems like every organization I've been in, we work really hard to achieve some objective, and we achieve it, and then we move on to the next one. I'm like, no, we need to take time to celebrate the wins, because these are hard fought wins by security, by IT, by the business leaders, and we need to stop and celebrate the hard work that went into achieving those.
All right, I want to throw one more at you about vendors. So what are your thoughts about how vendors are kind of shaping what's happening in the industry? As far as do you think we're like creating a problem bigger than it needs to be, so we can solve it with a technology platform? Like, are we driving in the right direction? What's your general take?
I would say there's definitely some of that, but we look at, though, I mean, we do need some of those vendors creating these unique solutions, because they end up creating those unique solutions, and then they get acquired by a bigger company, but those bigger companies need that technology to be able to add into their own solutions to be able to make more comprehensive solutions. So I think it's needed, but I definitely see vendors like, oh, you need to be really concerned about name whatever. I get those emails multiple times a week from vendors. And, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but I think I think it's a little bit of everything. That we do need some of those innovative thinkers. So they will be standalone companies themselves, or they'll get acquired and their technology will be part of their solution. Or and then, like I said, there are ones that this is a real problem. Like, well, it's never has been for me, so I'm not gonna engage in those conversations.
Awesome. Well, let's pivot a little bit here, Merlin, and interested to hear your thoughts on leading teams. So, as a leader of teams, a leader of people, what are the 2 or 3 things that kind of are important to you as a leader?
Yeah, I really like leadership. I like leadership just as much as I do security, because it takes people to be able to do this. I can't do this on my own. I rely on others, and I came up with this idea several years ago about leadership. That we always talk about leading up, influencing your boss, influencing the business leaders, helping them to understand where you're coming from, leading across, with my peers, and same thing. I'm trying to gain their buy-in, leading down. So that's leading my own teams, as well as like talking to individual contributors across other teams. again, those conversations are making sure that they feel supported and that they understand what the mission is. And then also the other element that I added a few years ago is leading within, because I think it's really important to take you kind of take note of how you're coming across in situations, because I might be at a meeting and it's like I might be the jerk. It might not be everybody else. It might be me. And so I think you have to take a hard look at yourself, and it's like that's not a comfortable thing to do at times, but maybe that's why things aren't moving across, because I need to change what I'm doing to be able to do that. So every team, like every time I've started a new job and leading a security team, I always tell my team that my primary role in my job is to clear the barriers out of the way so they can do their job. And so I get in those messy political battles and conflict, and I actually told my current boss one time. I said, if there's no conflict in my role, then I'm probably not doing my job correctly, because again, security is very disruptive. Conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing. We shouldn't run from conflict. We also should not create conflict where conflict doesn't need to happen. But conflict is inevitably going to happen, and so I try to shield my team from that as much as I can, so they can stay focused on the core mission. So far, it's been successful. They've been able to achieve some really good things in my current and lead my current team.
That's awesome. So yeah, this kind of, and this is we haven't heard this from some of the other people we've talked to, but I like this idea of kind of leading yourself, or self-appraisal, kind of self-assessment, kind of how do you do that? I mean, have you got a framework, a tool? I mean, how do you kind of reflect? Do you put time aside every day to reflect, or how do you kind of reflect and kind of continually evaluate your own contribution or performance, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's part of just replaying situations in my mind of like how could this have gone better. Also evaluating my emotions after a conversation, be like, oh, I don't feel so good after that, and then like, well, why don't I feel good? What could I have done differently? And maybe the answer is there. Maybe there isn't something I could have done differently. And then I think the other part is I'm blessed that there are 3 people I've known for a really long time in my career, and I've said this, all 3 of them was like, they could tell me like go jump off a cliff, and I'll be like, okay, because I have that much trust in them. And so, and they are very empowered to like come to me and be like, hey, Merlin, you're really the jerk in this situation, and so. But I respect them a lot. Like I said, I have a long-standing relationship with each of these 3 people, and so while hearing some of those things are it's never comfortable. It's a safe place because I know where they're coming from. It's not a personal attack. It's not they're trying to help me be better and be more successful. So I would encourage people to find that core group. Find your inner circle of professional contacts that you just trust wholeheartedly, who can like speak truth into into your career and into your life of things that you might need to do differently, or that they're right there celebrating your wins when you have some big victories as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and that we just got to continue. No one ever has all the answers, right, or is ever perfect. It's this concept of continuous improvement and continuing to improve, and is great. So tell me a little bit about as you acquire talent in your team. How do you any secrets or any thoughts on building and retaining the talent that you need to deliver? Are you finding it easy to find people out there? Hard to find people? How do you go about kind of finding the right people and then keeping them in your organization?
Yeah, but that's definitely a challenge in public sector. We don't pay as high salaries as private sector, so that is a challenge to attract the right team. I'm sorry, the right people for my team. So one of the things I do is, I speak, as you said, I speak a lot. And so I want people to know like the awesome things that my team is doing. And this is a great team that I have. I really, really enjoy working with this team at the city and county. And so I want people to know it's like, this is a very high performing team. I want the word to be out there. So when I do have openings and people are like, oh, city county Denver has an opening. Oh, I'm definitely going to apply for that. So So part of this, advertising, that we have a good team. And I think that really helps, but it is a challenge, to attract people. And so that's one of the things I do to be able to get some interest. And in terms of retaining people, what I always have some money in my budget every year to for training, whether it's going to conferences or a SANS course or something like that, because I have found this throughout my entire career that people really like training because they especially like in security, because this stuff just changes so rapidly that if you're not taking training, you're gonna fall you're gonna fall behind quickly and become irrelevant, and it's going to be hard for you to recover from that. And people always enjoy the training; they're always very appreciative, and it's a win-win because it's helping them. It's helping them, stay current in their careers, and then they come back, from a course, and then they implement that within my team. There's always that notion. I'm sure you've probably heard this. People are like, "Well, what if I train them and they leave?" And then the inverse of that is like, "What if I don't train them and they stay?" It's like, I know people are going to leave. That's fine, but I'm going to train them. And it's going to help them in their careers, and it's going to help me for however long they're in my program. And we implement what they learned into the program. So I still see it as a win-win, even if people leave after I train them.
No, absolutely. That's the right attitude. I like for people not to train because they're worried about leaving. That's just silly. I agree with you.
Well, and if you're worried about that, then you need to maybe, again, look inside yourself, and be like, what do I need to do differently that people want to stay? It's like, if you're so worried about people leaving, it's like, what do I need to do differently so they're going to be inclined to stay here and have a long career with your organization.
And what are you guys doing as far as return to office? Are you guys on site, mixed remote, or how have you guys done that? And how do you manage that to keep the team cohesive and working together?
Yeah, we're hybrid, and we do have it so that most of the team members come in at least one day a week. We try to target one specific day a week where everybody comes in. So we have the bulk majority of the team in the office at least one day a week together. So that helps. I think that those interactions are very valuable. So, but yeah, rest time the remote, and yeah, it's interesting because companies were really successful during COVID with working remote, and then also they decided that wasn't successful and have some companies have gone full in person, and some are hybrid. And I think it comes down to the manager. It's like, if you're a good leader, you're going to know what your people are doing, whether they're in the office or they're working from home.
That's very true. All right, Merlin, I want to switch gears on you to a little bit of a technical spin. Talking about just emerging technologies, and I guess we should talk about AI a little bit. So, what are your thoughts about what's coming down the pike? AI, quantum, like what's coming out there that you're excited about, and your thoughts?
I think AI is both exciting and frightening at the same time. Because I mean, we're using some AI on my team for detection and response, and it's amazing. It really is a force multiplier for my team, and it's able to go through data very quickly and make determinations. So I really like it for that. The frightening part is that the adversaries are using AI to develop exploits at a rapid pace. And I was at the RSA security conference a few weeks ago, and for the SANS keynote, they were actually predicting that within the next 1 to 2 years that we're going to see continuous development and releases of exploits. So it's going to be more of a CI/CD pipeline for exploits, and they're going to use AI for it. And that is a little frightening, but security has changed a lot since I first got into it. I know Graeme and I were talking about this the other day, that when we got in, it's we had a firewall, we had Snort for IDS, and we had antivirus on our endpoints, and that was about it. That was pretty much the extent of our security programs. It has obviously gotten a lot more complex and changed since then, and we've adapted as the threats have changed, and I'm sure we will with AI as well. So I think it'll be fine. I think it's going to be scary at times because we're going to see some pretty scary incidents that were caused by AI. but I think that we will learn from those, and we will grow and adapt.
Very cool.
Yeah. So in terms of like other emerging, I mean, yeah, quantum. Yeah, that's another interesting one. And that's something that it's definitely something I'm working on to make sure that we're prepared for that with the level encryptions. The level encryption that we're using, across the board.
Yeah, it's funny. We get a pretty consistent answer on AI. I think quantum, everybody's all over the place. A lot of people say, we'll just wait and see what happens. And then other people are very, very nervous about it because I think you don't really have a definitive date of when something's going to happen. I think AI is just rapidly happening and everybody's involved with it in one way or another. Someone's playing with some chat somewhere, or you're adopting some technology in your environment. But the AI piece, nobody really knows yet. The hardware is not, you don't know when it's coming. So that's always interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so how do you stay on top of emerging tech? Like where do you get your inputs from? How do you stay, how do you know what's coming?
Yeah. Combination of a lot of things, attending conferences, talking to people on my network, attending, dinners, webinars, watching YouTube videos. I mean, so there's really nice in this day and age that we do have lots of choices to be able to get information, to be able to keep learning.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so as you look out at the future, Merlin, what excites you about say the next 5 to 10 years? What excites you and what scares you?
I would say, AI, because I do see a lot of benefit, to our security teams when used appropriately. So I think that is, I think that's really going to help us. It's seriously, there's just a lot of innovative people out there, and seeing some of the emerging ideas and technologies in security. It's always exciting to see how people are approaching some of new problems as well as like old problems of like how are we going to approach patching so it's not so burdensome for our IT teams now, things like that. So it is fun, and also another thing that really gives me a lot of energy because of I've been doing this a long time is seeing the younger generation and seeing their passion for cybersecurity and listening to how they think about it and approach it is really invigorating. I mean, it gives me energy, talking with them about it because like, oh, I hadn't thought about it this way. And so, they have very different perspectives because, the younger generations grew up with technology. I didn't have my first computer until I started undergrad, and, they've grown up with all this. And so their perspectives are very different than what mine, were at the age that they are now.
Merlin, I think one other thing you touched on when we spoke earlier was just the diversity and women coming up in cyber that you had mentioned.
I've met some pretty amazing women, and these are young women. I mean, they're like in their 30s, who are just doing some really killer stuff in security. And just they have good reputations. They're just doing remarkable things. So again, I love seeing that. I love seeing that there's a lot more women in security. When I started, there was hardly any. There's hardly any women in technology, just across the board when I started. So it's great to see that diversity and seeing more women take an interest in cybersecurity and bring their perspectives and maybe solve problems in a different way than I would.
So do you think, down the road when you retire, you're going to stay deep in technology, or you're going to go in the woods and like unplug and?
Well, it's been a running joke with my wife and I that, when I retire, we're going to just move to the interior of Alaska and live off the land. So some days that's appealing, but I like to travel, we like to travel, and technology has just made traveling so much easier. Like we were in Japan last year, and so we were like a grocery market trying to find some things, and we're looking at the ingredients, and of course all the ingredients, the labels are all in Japanese. But I brought up a Google Lens on my phone, and I was just like hovering over there and like translated to English, and it's like that's amazing. I remember like several years ago that we were on a trip to Iceland, and we were trying to find a restaurant, and just brought up Google Maps, and it like took me right there, and I was just so fascinated. It's like here I am on almost the other side of the world, Well, I guess quite the other side of the world from Colorado, but, a long way away from Colorado. Yeah, it's like, the technology works. It doesn't matter where you're at on the planet, that the technology works. And, growing up with technology and such, like, there's so much that went into that. A lot of smart people to be able to develop these technologies that, we get a benefit from. So, yeah, I mean, as appealing as it sounds that they used to get away from technology, I'll never get away from technology.
Yeah, it's embedded in you. New stuff comes out, you got to play with it. I totally get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey, we spent most of this time learning from you, and I think you're opening the door now to learn more about you. And I think we'd like to learn more. So, talk to us a little bit. Like, how did you talk to us about that journey on how you got into cybersecurity? Are you like most of us and just fell into it? How did you get into cyber?
I did fall into it. None of my college, I have 3 college degrees, and none of them are in technology. I In undergrad, I was working in the student computer lab, and had developed an interest in technology then. And then when I went to grad school, I did the same thing there. First year, I was helping the department to really understand how to use the technology. And then my senior year, I worked for the campus NOC and learned a lot about networking and routing switching in that role. And then when I graduated, I ended up not getting a job in my my major area. I like went technology. So I was on the IT path for about 3 years. And then I took a Checkpoint Firewall 1 4.0 course, and I was like, whoa, what's this? And I was like smitten. I'm like, this is so cool. I really like this technology. And that really shaped me into focusing my career, entirely on security. And it's been great. I've, met some wonderful people. I think that security has like the strongest community, stronger than any IT communities or application communities. It was nice going to RSA. I ran into like several people I've known for years, and it's great. And I just think it's just a really strong community. And I think part of it is because it just changes so rapidly that we do rely on each other to help us navigate this, because no one person can know everything. So it's great to have like a lot of people I can turn to ask for advice, and I feel if they've been in that situation as well. So yeah, and I stayed hands-on technical for several years in security. So did incident response for a number of years. I did digital forensics. So I used NCASE and FTK, which I don't think that those are used anymore. So I think I'm antiquated by even mentioning those tools. Yeah. And I did engineering and architecture work, and then moved into leadership, and I've been either head of security or a CISO for a few different security programs. And I really like being in the CISO role because like I mentioned earlier, I really like leadership, but I feel really strongly about the path I took to get into leadership, that even now, even though I haven't been hands-on technical for a long time, I can get in some very technical conversations with my team. And I'm really glad I can do that. They're glad I can do that, because I'm glad I could do that, because at the end of the day, it's like I'm the one who's approving something. And I was like, I want to understand how this works. If it breaks, I need to understand why it broke, so that way I can explain it to my boss or to city council or to the mayor's office. And so yeah, I just feel like that's a strong path. I know that's controversial. I know a lot of people have taken other paths to be in the CISO role, but this path has worked really well for myself.
So, what advice would you give to other people that are coming up in the industry, knowing what you know? What should they do to follow a Merlin path if they want to be a CISO and grow up in the industry?
I think first you have to understand that the cybersecurity industry changes rapidly, and you have to be okay with that. That you have to be okay that you are going to be spending time every week learning, and you're never going to know everything. And you have to be okay with that you're not ever going to know everything, and that things are going to keep changing. You're like, well, I just learned this. Now I got to learn in a different way. And some people aren't wired that way. And if you don't like to be a continuous learner, then this is not really the industry for you, because it does change. And I would say that that's true not only for the technical aspects of cybersecurity, but even the compliance aspects. That changes, and you need to stay on top of that as well. So you just have to have that desire to learn, and that's one of the reasons why I like to travel, because it's fun to go to new places and learn, the culture, the food, language, all those things, because I just love to learn. So that's my number one advice. And I talk to high school groups, I talk to college groups, and that's advice I give all of them, is that you have to have a desire to learn. If you have a desire to learn, you can learn all the other stuff. You can learn the technical aspects, and you can take it as deep as you want. And there's lots of different angles you can go with it. But the interesting, when I talk to groups, I'm like, you can go to law school and then be in cybersecurity. They're like, really? They're always surprised by that. And I tell them how we need more lawyers that are focused on cybersecurity and the role that they play, especially with incident response. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And so I think while there are a number of people that are coming up, I guess you can call it a traditional path in cybersecurity, since there are college programs now where you can major in cybersecurity, that there are still non-traditional ways to get in there, that you can come in cybersecurity via law school.
And it's interesting. I was just thinking about the earlier conversation you were referencing between you and Graeme about the early days and the education side. Early days, it was you were saying the mainframes. All you had to do is like secure the physical door. And now cybersecurity is so complex, and you can specialize in so many different areas. To your point, there's just so much to learn. As in back in the day, maybe it was a firewall, something else, and there's just so many different specializations that you can focus on. And to your point, it's continuous learning even within those specializations. And so it's just so much more of a complex field than it was 20 years ago. So anyway,
absolutely. And when I talk to like these different groups, when I'm like, well, what do you want to do in cybersecurity? The number one answer is, I want to be a pen tester. I'm like, that's great. There's not that many jobs in, being a full-time pen tester. And so I kind of, help them come back down to reality with that, because it is exciting to develop break-in systems. I mean, that's I like doing it. I mean, it's a fun activity to do, and then you have a sense of accomplishment when you do it. But they have to understand like what that really means, and all the documentation that goes into that. And again, that there's a limited number of jobs in doing that. It's great to have those skills. I mean, I have people on my team who have those skills, and sometimes they do need to go do some penetration testing, but that's not that's not their full-time function.
Well, let's pivot a little bit to, so we are talking about this is the Cyber Smokehouse. So we're kind of interested in your experience with smoking or grilling. Are you a smoker or a griller?
I just grill. Nothing special. I don't smoke because I'm hungry and I don't want to wait for it to smoke, so I want to eat. So I grill. I don't do anything special with grilling, but I definitely do like going to barbecue. And I've had barbecue, a few different places around the country, and I think I'll have to go on a limb and say I think that the Kansas City barbecue is the best.
Well, what's your favorite food, at least? Like, if you pick any type.
In terms of barbecue,
No, you can do anything. You can do anything. Italian, sushi, you name it.
Yeah, any food. I would say pan fried chicken is like my favorite. Man, with the chicken gravy and mashed potatoes, it's like, yeah, that's that brings back some great memories from my childhood. And when there's actually, lo and behold, there's actually a really good place in Kansas City that cooks chicken that way. So,
Okay.
yeah, if you haven't spent much time in Kansas City is actually it's a big foodie city. I've never lived there. I visited there a number of times, but there's a lot of great food places in Kansas City. So yeah, when I'm there, I try to visit the chicken place, because that is a real treat.
What do you know what it's called? Graham's going next week.
Yeah, it's called Stroud's.
Okay.
Definitely had some very good barbecue in Kansas City as well. And yeah, I kind of like that more tangy type barbecue.
Yeah. Bit like the have you tried the North Carolina barbecue match? Yeah, that's kind of more of a tangy flavor too. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, cool. Well, Merlin, how can people connect with you?
The best way is LinkedIn. my profile is open. You can find me. Just connect with me and reach out if there's anything I could do. I'm very much a servant leader at heart. I'm a servant leader to my team and as well as the industry. And if someone wants some advice, or tips or whatever, feel free to reach out to me. And that is a big reason why I present at conferences and come on, podcasts like this, is that I want people to be able to learn from my experiences and hopefully learn from my mistakes, and they can go make their own mistakes and don't make the same mistakes that I made.
And I think you said you're presenting at the Rocky Mountain Security Conference in June. Is that right?
I am. Yeah, that's here in Denver, Colorado, and that's where I'm located. And it's a great conference. Gosh, it's been growing a lot. I mean, I presented there first time I don't know, over 10 years ago, I think, and it was a 1-day conference. Now it's a 3-day conference, and I am doing. There's a CISO leadership event on Tuesday morning. I'm co-presenting with someone on that, and then in the afternoon, I am doing a panel with the 3 people that I mentioned are my inner circle in my career, and we're actually doing a panel on how to stay relevant in cybersecurity with all the changes. How do you stay on top of it? How do you stay current with the technologies and the compliance standards and everything? And so we're all going to share our experiences. It's going to be, of course, I'm biased. I think it's going to be a really good panel. Each of us have over 25 years of experience in cybersecurity. So we each have a long runway of what we've done to be able to, bring us today to be the leaders that we are today and to remain relevant and effective in the industry.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, hopefully I can come and listen to that. I'm actually, myself and one of my colleagues is actually running a 3-hour tabletop exercise for security practitioners at the conference. So as long as it doesn't clash, we'll come and listen to your panel discussion. That'll be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great. Hopefully I'll be able to catch your session. I've done tabletops for years, but everybody always keeps modifying them and doing something different. Like, oh, I hadn't thought about that before. So I'm sure that'll be a great session.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Cool.
Well, hey, Merlin, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's great, and we've chatted informally, and it's great to come on the podcast and share some of my ideas, like I said, and hopefully people can learn some things with from my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, audience. If you learned something today or laughed, tell someone about the podcast. This has been another exciting episode of the Cyber Smokehouse, and we'll see you next time. And that wraps another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at cybersmokehouse.com. Cyber Smokehouse is sponsored by TBD Cyber, a cybersecurity strategy consulting firm.
TBD Cyber works with organizations to assess their security program, develop and implement security initiatives, and optimize their security investments. We work in areas as broad as data security, risk management, cyber resilience, and security architecture. Our clients value us for our extensive expertise and independent advice, which is why we do not sell security products or deliver managed security services. If you want to work with a trusted advisor, we can help. You can learn more at tbdcyber.com. We'll see you on the next one.